Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time. Hello and welcome to another episode of Wacky Wednesday, a weekly series where we explore wacky deck ideas in both Standard and Modern, and this week we're taking a look at a red-white deck in Standard built around Firesong and Sunspeaker, the Buy a Box promo, a 6-mana 4/6 that says red instant and sorcery spells we control have lifelink, and whenever a white instant or sorcery spell causes us to gain life, Firesong and Sunspeaker deal 3 damage to target creature or player. So that's a lot of text and a lot of different things going on with the card, but one of the sweet interactions with Firesong and Sunspeaker are all the red sweeper effects, because red instant and sorcery spells we control have lifelink. If we, let's say, cast a Sweltering Suns with Firesong and Sunspeaker in play, we will gain 3 life for each creature that's dealt damage by the Sweltering Suns. So the more creatures in play, the more life we gain. So that's going to be very powerful against a lot of the aggressive decks, and same goes for something like Hour of Devastation. And then for the second part of Firesong and Sunspeaker, whenever a white instant or sorcery spell causes us to gain life, we've got 4 copies of Renewed Faith, a 3-mana instant that gains us 6 life, but we can also cycle it for 2 mana, and then we still get to gain 2 life. So unfortunately, Firesong and Sunspeaker don't trigger if you cycle the Renewed Faith, but there is a card in our deck that lets us recast Renewed Faith from the graveyard. So if we have Abandoned Sarcophagus in play, then we still get a ton of value out of our Renewed Faith in combination with Firesong and Sunspeaker, since we can cycle it first and then cast it from the graveyard. But against the more aggressive decks, just casting a Renewed Faith with a Firesong and Sunspeaker in play can still be a very attractive play. So let's take a look at the entire list, starting out with our 2-drops, where we have 4 copies of Treasure Map, which lets us scry a bunch and then transforms into Treasure Cove, where we get a bunch of treasure tokens that we can sacrifice to draw cards. We also have a 1 copy of Seal Away as a cheap removal spell that can exile a tapped creature. Then we also have 4 copies of Abrade, which can deal 3 damage to a creature or destroy an artifact. So being able to deal 3 damage, of course, combines nicely with Firesong and Sunspeaker. If we have them out, we will also be able to gain 3 life as we deal the 3 damage. Then we also have 2 copies of Abandoned Sarcophagus, since as you may have noticed, both Renewed Faith and Sweltering Suns have cycling, and we also have Cast Out 4 of in the deck that also has cycling, so that's a lot of cycling cards, and that's where Abandoned Sarcophagus comes in. So we can cast non-land cards with cycling from our graveyard, and if a card with cycling would be put into our graveyard from anywhere, and if it wasn't cycled, it gets exiled instead. So the way it usually works is when you play the Sarcophagus, you might already have 1 or 2 cycling cards in the graveyard, and you'll get to replay them from the graveyard without having to do anything fancy thanks to the Sarcophagus, so that's already providing a little bit of value. And then for all your future cycling cards, the way you typically want to sequence things is you want to cycle the card first, that way you get to draw a card, and the cycling card goes to the graveyard normally since it got cycled. And then you get to cast the cycling card from the graveyard using the Sarcophagus, and that way you still get the effect of the card, and that way you still got to draw the extra card thanks to cycling. So it provides a lot of advantage in a longer grindy game. Then we have the 4 copies of Renewed Faith, which we can cycle for 2 mana to gain 2, and then maybe cast back from the graveyard using the Sarcophagus, which will gain us 6 life. So that's a lot of life to work with, and multiple ways to trigger Firesong and Sunspeaker. Then we have our 4 copies of Sweltering Suns, which we can play against aggressive decks and cycle against more controlling decks. Then we get to our 4-drops, where we have 4 copies of Karn, Scion of Urza, which can provide a lot of Karn advantage with the +1 and -1 abilities. And then the -2 is actually quite powerful as well if we have a transformed treasure map, since a transformed treasure map brings along 3 treasure tokens, which are artifacts, and the -2 ability makes a construct token that gets +1/+1 for each artifact we control, so those can get very big very quickly if we have some treasure tokens in play. Then we have 4 copies of Cast Out, which is a nice versatile removal spell that also has cycling, so combines very well with the Sarcophagus. Then we have 2 more Planeswalkers in the form of Chandra, Arch of Defiance, which can be used as a removal spell and can also provide some card advantage herself. Then we have 2 copies of Angel of Sanctions, which is a removal spell on a stick that also has Embalm, so we can get it back from the graveyard to exile something once again. And then 1 copy of Hour of Devastation as another sweeper effect that combines very well with Firesong and Sunspeaker, and since Karn has such high loyalty, he's usually going to survive the 5 damage to all Planeswalkers clause, so it's still okay in our deck even if we have a Planeswalker out. And then of course the 3 copies of Firesong and Sunspeaker, which is the build around card. Then taking a look at our mana base, we have one fancy land in the form of Arch of Orazca, which if we have the City's Blessing, so if we have 10 or more permanents, we get to pay 5 mana, tap the Arch to draw a card. And of course, Arch of Orazca combines nicely with Treasure Map, since those treasure tokens suddenly add up a lot of new permanents for the City's Blessing. And then the rest of the mana base is pretty straightforward. 4 copies of Clifftop Retreat, enters the battlefield untapped if we control a mountain or a plains. 4 Inspiring Vantage, which enters the battlefield untapped if it's one of our first 3 lands. 8 mountains and 7 plains, and then 1 Necessary Evil, Stone Quarry, just to have a few more dual lands in the deck, so we can cast our double red and double white spells in the sideboard. Then speaking of sideboards, let's take a look at it. We've got 2 copies of Chandra's Defeat, which is great against the red decks, since they can also take out Chandras from the opponent or Glory Bringers that they might bring in. We have 2 copies of Crook of Condemnation against the graveyard decks. 2 Forsake the Worldly as another cycling card that goes well with the Sarcophagus and can exile artifacts or enchantments, so we can also bring it in against most of the control decks. Then 3 copies of Captain Lannery Storm, which is part of a transformational plan against control decks, since they might not expect us to have these aggressive creatures, and Captain Lannery Storm makes treasures whenever she attacks, so that also combines nicely with our treasure map and our Karn Scion of Urza if we go on the beatdown plan. Then we have 4 copies of History of Benalia as another threat that we can bring in against control decks, since we have so many dead cards against control in the main deck, so we want to have a lot of tools to find them after sideboard. And finally we have 2 copies of Lyra Dawnbringer, which shines against the more aggressive decks that might have trouble answering her. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the play, and this hand seems okay. We've got an early treasure map, some removal into a Karn, so pretty much the perfect hand here. So let's lead with a tapped retreat, say go. Alright, blue-black, maybe some sort of control deck. Let's run out treasure map while we still can. And then we're probably going to scry an upkeep. Alright, looks like a Grixis control deck. And I don't think we want Firesong and Sunspeaker, really looking for land 4 here. There we go. Say go, keep up Abrade. Don't know yet if we're gonna cycle this cast out or not. A Direfleet Hoarder, alright, so maybe a Grixis Pirates deck. That's fine. I think I'm fine using the Abrade here to deal with the Hoarder, just so our Karn doesn't get attacked. Opponent does get a treasure out of the deal, so I'll just untap and then play Karn. And start plussing. And we got a Plains. Plains also exiled. And there's Revel in Riches, alright, so we have found our opponent's win condition. That's fine. So I don't mind getting a little bit aggressive here, -2 Karn, and then we can cast out the Revel in Riches in response to any removal spell on our construct token, and still scry with the treasure map. Hostage Taker instead, alright. We'll be casting the Hostage Taker out here in response, so we still get to keep our construct. And then we can still scry with our treasure map. And then we might just transform it on upkeep to make our construct huge. Yeah, I'll keep another Karn. So don't need to scry on upkeep, but I will transform treasure map before we attack. Don't really need a Renewed Faith. And then we can -2 Karn. Attack for 5. And we could have played a second Karn and minus that as well before attacking, but I think I want to -2 the original Karn first. Maybe should have cycled Sweltering Suns before attacking in case we picked up another cheap artifact we could play. Firesong and Sunspeaker is a good pickup as well for the future, but I'm not going to waste any treasures when we have 2 construct tokens in play. Alright, Secrets of the Golden City, opponent draws 2. And Unlicensed Disintegration, that'll work. Opponent gets the treasure from their Revel in Riches as well, so they could still have a fatal push for our token, but that's okay. Let's -2 Karn, play Sarcophagus, play another Karn, and minus that one as well, and attack for 7. So our opponent needs a sweeper to get out of this mess. And our opponent scoops it up. Alright, so on to sideboarding against Grixis, Revel in Riches. I'm guessing History and Captain Lannery are going to be decent sideboard options against a slower deck from the opponent. And then Forsake could be an answer to Revel in Riches, but I don't know if our opponent's going to have many targets beyond the Revel in Riches. Did also see a Hostage Taker and some other pirates. Don't think Sweltering Suns is going to be great if we bring in all these creatures, so we might want to take those out. Could definitely shave one Firesong and Sunspeaker, since we did see Unlicensed Disintegration, which the opponent might keep in. Seal Away could be a little awkward in the face of Hostage Taker, since it's not a great answer to it, so I could see taking that out. Maybe we don't need all Lannery Storms, and 2 is enough. Yeah, this seems fine. Keep in Hour of Devastation to still have access to 1 sweeper effect, just in case. And this hand seems fine. Alright, History, but we don't have double white yet. So definitely gonna cycle this Renewed Faith in the hopes of finding a white source. Opponent's got all their colors. And a Doomfall, taking a look at our hand. Yeah, that'll work. I'm not gonna cycle Renewed Faith in response, since they likely take one of the other cards anyways, and that hides a little bit of information. So they might take Karn, they might take History. Alright, they take the Karn, and we'll cycle Renewed Faith. And Captain Lannery is not a bad pickup. Does give us access to double white for next turn. So not gonna sack the treasure right now. Opponent's at 18. We've got answers to Hostage Taker. Yep. They might just take the treasure token instead. Nope, they go for Lannery anyways. Alright, let us draw. Can Abrade the Hostage Taker. Play History, which will give Lannery an extra point of power as well. And attack for 3. And we'll hang on to the other treasure token, since that's another double white source for the second History. So we kind of transformed into this weird beatdown deck after sideboard, which can be a very effective plan against more controlling decks if they don't expect it. The rest is going to take our second History. And a Hoarder is going to be a blocker for Captain Lannery. Let's cycle Renewed Faith first. And Karn's not a bad draw, so now we also have the City's Blessing. I don't mind attacking with both. If they trade for Lannery, then the Knight next turn gets in for a lot of extra damage, and if they trade for the Knight, we still have a Lannery going. It seems good. Opponent will trade for Lannery. And now we can run out Karn. And plus, I think. Alright, looks like we've got another History we can get next turn. And our opponent just gonna concede. Alright, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. This hand's okay, not amazing, but we'll definitely keep. Turn to Abrade, and then hopefully we can protect our Chandra. Ooh, turn 1 Memorial to War, so some sort of land destruction deck. Alright, I'm intrigued. Let's play Mountain, say go. So this could be like a rampy land destruction deck. Blue-red so far. Thematic Compass, alright, I've got an Abrade to answer that one. And the opponent's probably not going to have a ton of creatures, so we might as well Abrade that right away. No reason to show them the planes yet. Let's just Abrade the Compass before they get to untap and activate it. Alright, opponent says go. We'll play the Inspiring Vantage and run out the Sarcophagus. And there's Hashep Oasis. And a Spring from Spring to Mind. So opponent's ramping. Alright, we do get a window to resolve Chandra here, which is nice. Might actually just plus 4 mana and run out the treasure map while we're at it. Since I don't think the 2 damage is going to be relevant, and against the potential land destruction based deck, getting a Chandra in play to make mana is pretty powerful. Next turn we can also run out Firesong and Sunspeaker if we want to. Right, Gift of Paradise, opponent keeps ramping. So using Chandra's first ability when the opponent doesn't have any creatures in play might not be amazing, since a lot of our removal spells are not going to do anything if we reveal them with Chandra. So I think we're better off scrying on upkeep here with the treasure map to kind of control what we draw. Ooh, Karn's a nice one. So that might change our plan. So initially I was gonna plus Chandra for mana to run out Firesong and Sunspeaker. Now I might just plus for damage and then run out a Karn. Think that's probably better. And if we happen to reveal another Karn, then sure, we can just play it. Another Sarcophagus we don't need, so let's deal 3 damage to our opponents and then run out Karn. And I don't mind aggressively minusing here, since we have this treasure map in play and the Sarcophagus, so that's a lot of artifacts. Opponent has a struggle to survive to take care of our token. Fair enough. And opponent casts a Mind Part from Spring to Mind to draw 2 cards. Alright, so we're pretty close to ultimating Chandra, which is exciting. So again, on upkeep, I don't mind scrying with the treasure map. Don't need another Firesong. Let's draw, cast out could be good in the future if our opponent ever presents a target. And we can also cycle it with the Sarcophagus for value, so that's nice. Let's -2 Karn again. And then I don't mind plussing Chandra for mana to get the Sunspeaker in play. And then we can also cycle the cast out. I guess we should have cycled cast out before doing anything, just to get a little bit more info. Alright, still fine. So let's run out Sunspeaker and say go. Still have a cast out in the graveyard we can play, Abrade in hand. Chandra about to ultimate. Treasure map about to transform. So I don't mind our spot here. But if our opponent has something like Star of Extinction, we could be in trouble, I guess. Yeah, looks like that might be happening, yep. So 20 damage to each creature and Planeswalker, and they also get to blow up our Arch. Alright, so no more Chandra about to ultimate, and all our creatures are gone. Either way, we still have a treasure map that's about to transform, which is good. Don't need an Abrade. And another treasure map, sure. And then we'll say go. And using cast out on the Gift of Paradise was also gonna be unlikely to do anything. So we'll pass it back, cast out in the graveyard at the ready, Abrade in hand, and a treasure map we can scry with. Once again, opponent could use their Memorial to blow up the treasure cove. Instead, Hour of Promise, sure. So I don't mind using Abrade on one of the tokens, and we still have Sweltering Suns in the deck we can draw as well. And another Spring. But I think we want to scry with the treasure map first, and then we can probably play the Abrade the next turn. Alright, Sweltering Suns I guess is a pretty clean answer, so we'll keep that on top. And then no need to scry an upkeep, so we can cycle this first, and then still cast it, since we have the Sarcophagus in play. Ooh, Chandra. If we want to play Chandra and then use mana to cast Sweltering Suns, we will have to get rid of some treasures, since getting a Chandra in play is pretty tempting. Alright, sure, let's play Chandra. And then we can make mana. The downside of this play is that we don't get to transform the second treasure map right away. But I think that's okay. Cast Sweltering Suns. And our opponent needs another answer to our Planeswalker. A Sifter Worm, alright, that's pretty exciting. We do have a cast out to answer it, but it is going to provide a little bit of value here for the opponent. Let's see what they reveal. Reveals another Sifter Worm, fair enough. So upkeep, we'll scry with treasure map. Don't need a mountain. We'll draw. Ooh, okay, we found another cast out with our draw steps, so don't think we need to plus Chandra for mana, so we might as well use the first mode. And don't think we need to cast the Sweltering Suns, so let's just have that deal damage. Then we get to cycle, cast out, draw a card, and then cast it with the sarcophagus. Alright, and we still have Treasure Cove we can use to draw a card with our treasure token. So there's another Sifter Worm, this time revealing Hour of Promise, so would not mind finding another Sweltering Suns down the line here. Let's draw with the Treasure Cove. Alright, there's a Sweltering Suns, perfect. So upkeep, transform treasure map, bottom the Clifftop, draw, find a Karn. Alright, that's exciting. I think we want to use Chandra for mana, then we can play Karn and cast out on the Sifter Worm. So let's start by using the cast out, see if that works. Plus Chandra for mana. I guess we should not play out Karn, since another Star of Extinction would be bad for us. So I guess we'll just cycle the Sweltering Suns then. So it changed our mind at the last second. So should have had a Treasure Cove untapped so we could still draw a card with the treasure token instead. But I think we'll be fine. So yeah, we could have played it differently by having Karn in play, but that would be a little weak to another Star of Extinction. Since if we can ultimate Chandra, I think we can win the game pretty easily. So they already are kind of forced to use Star of Extinction to begin with. So no need to give them a free Planeswalker. Alright, Hour of Promise is fine, have a Sweltering Suns in the graveyard, and when we ultimate Chandra, then playing Karn is fine. So I don't think they'll have a Star of Extinction if they run out the Hour of Promise first. Mind to draw 2 cards. Alright, don't mind our position here. Alright, let's draw. Ultimate Chandra. Cast Sweltering Suns out of the graveyard. Trigger Chandra, deal 5 to opponents. Play Karn. Deal 5 to opponents. And I don't mind minusing here to apply even more pressure. And we should be able to close out the game from here pretty easily. Hour of Devastation is gonna clean up our creature and our Karn. Not much we can do about it, so that works. Could have cast Abrade just to get the trigger from Chandra to deal 5 to our opponent, but I don't think we're that desperate to deal 5 to our opponent. So end of turn we can cycle Renewed Faith, gain some life, and then cast it from the graveyard next turn to deal 5 to our opponent while gaining 6. And if we can find a Firesong and Sunspeaker, even better. Consign on the cast out, alright. So our opponent found an answer, a temporary answer at least, to the cast out, but now we get to replay the cast out and deal 5 to our opponent, so don't know if that's gonna do much. Opponent reveals Hour of Devastation to gain 5, pick up a Karn, let's draw, play a Karn, deal 5 to our opponents, play a cast out, deal 5 to our opponents, opponent draws with Arch, let's get rid of the Sifter Worm, and then don't mind minusing with Karn here, and say go. And then we have the flexibility of using Abrade just to deal 5 damage to our opponent if they want to make us discard. Otherwise we can just cast a Renewed Faith at the cost of a treasure if we want to. Alright, cut on the constructs. They'll need another way to deal damage. I guess I can cast a pretty big Ribbons, but not enough to kill us. Alright, second cut. That'll work. And they're gonna fire off a Ribbons for 9. That works. So they're gonna try and kill us in 2 turns here. But we still have the Renewed Faith to gain us some life back. So let's do that. And we can always Abrade our own treasure just to deal 5 to our opponent. So if we draw any spell we can cast, our opponent's dead. And our opponent's just gonna concede, alright. So on to sideboarding against a ramp deck. So I think I like our Lannery Storm and History of Benalia sideboard plan in this matchup, just to apply a lot of early pressure. Lyra doesn't seem very good. Forsake doesn't do much. Crook of Condemnation does something, since our opponent does rely on Spring to Mind to draw cards and cut the ribbons to win the game. So I could see bringing in 1, but it's definitely not necessary. Then Hour of Devastation can go. Angel of Sanctions also doesn't have a ton of targets, but can still get rid of a Sifter Worm, I guess. Same with Cast Out. Abrade seems pretty weak, so Abrade can probably go. Seal Away is probably also not great. At least Cast Out is a little more versatile than a Seal Away. And then probably want to keep in Sweltering Suns to answer the zombies, since their opponent's never going to cut their Hour of Promise. And we can always cycle the Sweltering Suns, so that's fine. I guess we don't really need the Crook of Condemnation. 1 more cut, and that's probably just going to be a Firesong. Alright, let's try this combination. This hand's pretty unexciting, doesn't have any of our sideboard cards to punish our opponents having a slow draw. Sweltering Sun's pretty reactive and expensive to cycle, and Angel of Sanctions also not amazing in our opening hands. I think this is worth a mulligan, just to try and find one of those more proactive cards, and there we go, perfect. Don't need a second Renewed Faith, just looking for basic planes with this hand essentially. So we can cast History on 3 if we want to. Alright, Inspiring Vantage also works. So next turn cycle Renewed Faith, turn 3 we can play Lannery or History. And our opponent doesn't do much in the early turns. So here they probably play some sort of ramp spell. And it's gonna be a Spring to Mind, getting black mana. Cycle this Renewed Faith. Let's make sure to play Mountain, and I think I like playing Lannery just to get that treasure, and the extra mana could be useful. So yeah, let's go with Lannery. Might give us a few more options for next turn thanks to the extra treasure. Alright, there's a Compass. And our opponent says go. So let's draw. So with Lannery we potentially have 6 mana this turn. Kinda want to run out this History of Benalia to keep applying the pressure, and we don't need to cast out the Compass yet. So we can go History plus Treasure Map. We can play History using the Treasure token to pump up Lannery. Unwind, wow, alright, did not expect that one. So History gets countered. So if we expected Unwind, we definitely could have played History last turn and then Lannery this turn, but that's okay, we can still play our Treasure Map, which is going to be pretty good as well. And opponent getting the value from Unwind, since they can still use their Compass this turn. Or potentially counter the Treasure Map as well. Opponent uses Compass, gets a Forest. I guess if your opponent has another Spring to Mind type of effect, they could transform the Compass this turn, but doesn't look like it. Alright, another Cast Out, so could have definitely considered scrying on upkeep with Treasure Map here. But as it stands, I think I like attacking with Lannery, and I don't think we're gonna sacrifice any treasures here. Opponent takes 2. And then I think I'm just gonna say go, and then cast out the Compass. I think I'm fine using the Cast Out now, since we have a second one. And now they can't unwind us. They could still have a negate, I suppose, but that's it. So we got rid of the Compass, but our opponent still got 2 lands out of the deal, so I don't think they'll be too sad. And Carnage Tyrant, alright, did not expect that to make an appearance. That works, but the Lannery can potentially still punch through the Carnage Tyrant with enough treasures. And Sarcophagus seems okay, since we can cycle Cast Out and then cast the Cast Out still. So let's draw. So if we attack with Lannery here, our opponent can still block with Carnage Tyrant, so we'll have to wait a turn until we can transform Treasure Map before we do so. But for now I like running out the Sarcophagus, and then we can scry with Treasure Map before we cycle Cast Out, but we can do that end of turn to leave up more options. And opponent casts Mind to draw 2 cards, that's okay. So they have a pretty full grip, but as you may have noticed, no deserts yet, so even if they have Hour of Promise, they won't be able to make any zombies with it, which is definitely relevant. And Carnage Tyrant gonna stay on defense. Another Lannery we probably don't need, already have one in hand. Cycle Cast Out, let's untap. And upkeep we can transform Treasure Map. And Firesong and Sunspeaker, what do you do for us here? So we're gonna attack with Captain Lannery, and the opponent might just block with Carnage Tyrant, and then we're forced to kind of throw away all our treasure tokens for no good reason. Or we can just play a Firesong and Sunspeaker with some of our treasures just to pump Lannery. Firesong and Sunspeaker has Renewed Faith in the graveyard, so it does deal 3 damage with that. And it does survive Hour of Devastation, does not survive Star of Extinction. So definitely an interesting spot. I think we can keep it on top, since it seems better than an average draw. And I think I like playing the Firesong and Sunspeaker main phase. Opponent has a Memorial anyways to blow up the Treasure Cove, and this way we get a little bit of value out of Captain Lannery getting pumped by having the extra mana. So we can play Firesong and Sunspeaker, sacrificing a couple of treasures. Attack. And if they block, we can further pump Captain Lannery and maybe use the mana to cast a Renewed Faith to Lightning Bolt our opponent, essentially. Alright, opponent does block. So let's sack some more treasures and cast Renewed Faith and deal 3 to our opponents. So our opponent doesn't take too much damage, but we did manage to trade away for the Carnage Tyrant, which might have been an issue, and we still have a second Lannery coming up. So even Star of Extinction here, while annoying, we have a decent follow-up with second Lannery. Alright, another Carnage Tyrant instead. And our opponent has a City's Blessing and another Spring to Mind. Alright, so our opponent putting up some annoying blockers for us to deal with. Another treasure map is a good draw though. Can definitely scry. See what's on top. Mountain can go to the bottom. So I think we say go, keep Lannery in hand as a surprise. And this way we get to keep up cast out as well. But this is definitely the part of the game where our opponent's gonna start pulling ahead with all their Spring to Minds. And they just have more mana to work with as well. Alright, Memorial on the Treasure Cove. Let's sacrifice our treasure. Alright, Sweltering Suns we can cycle. Could also use it to finish off a Carnage Tyrant, I suppose. Opponent deciding whether or not to attack with Carnage Tyrant, but they decide to stay on defense. Alright, let's cycle the Sweltering Suns, since we still have the Sarcophagus to cast it from the graveyard. Angel of Sanctions, while it might not seem amazing, since it doesn't have anything to exile, it is still a 3-power flyer, and History seems good as well. So lots of options here. I think I like History, just to try and go wide with a Lannery as well, and keep Angel of Sanctions to try and get a bit of value out of it. So we'll say go. Alright, there's their first desert, so I imagine now they'll have an Hour of Promise they want to play to make 2 zombies. The zombies could die to the Sweltering Suns, but they make it so going wide with the Night tokens is less appealing. Instead looks like opponent's just gonna not do anything. Alright, let's transform our treasure map on upkeep. Another History, seems fine. Do want to be careful not to play too many Histories into a potential sweeper, so we don't want to overextend if we don't have to. So our opponent can cast Mind at instant speed here, so it's definitely tricky whether or not we want to play out a second History or not, since they could easily be sandbagging Star of Extinction or maybe just Hour of Devastation. I think we just say go. The plan being that next turn we could just attack with everyone and then finish off Carnage Tyrant with the Sweltering Suns. So there's no need to really overextend here. Opponent casts Mind. Carnage Tyrant attacks, so that's an indication that our opponent's going to play Sweeper anyways here. So we could just block to call their bluff, but if we trade then they might not be forced to use their Sweeper effect, which is an issue. But I think I'm fine double blocking Carnage Tyrant anyways. We didn't see many instant speed spot removal spells from the opponent that could punish us for the double block. And if they do play Sweeper anyways, then we still have some pretty good follow-up with Lannery. So I think this is okay. Ooh, looks like they do have an instant speed spell here. Commit on the Carnage Tyrant. Alright, so I guess Star of Extinction is coming. Definitely not the prettiest play. Alright, Star of Extinction on Treasure Cove. Our creatures are dead, so let's untap. History of Benalia doesn't do anything. But let's see, we can hit our opponent for 6 here with Captain Lannery. That's pretty tempting. And there's not much our opponent can do about it. So let's play History. Pump Lannery some more. I guess we hang on to the last treasure token and just hit them for 5 here, or we could hit them for 6. I guess hitting them for 6 is probably better, since then 1 night token with the 3rd chapter is enough to kill them. So yeah, let's go for maximum damage here. Don't have a treasure cove anyways to draw cards with, and we don't have a Karn to take advantage of the extra artifacts, so I think this is okay. And we'll hang on to the Angel of Sanctions to maybe answer a Sifter Worm. Might finally see Hour of Promise that our opponent's been sandbagging. Nope, instead Hour of Devastation. Sure. Alright, make another night. So we know our opponent's gonna draw Karnstein next turn, so this night token's not gonna get there by himself. So I think I'm okay running out a Angel of Sanctions with no value, essentially, just to apply a bit more pressure. And then if our opponent does block with Karnstein on the night, we can finish off Karnstein with the Sweltering Suns in our graveyard. Opponent's gonna use Arch of Orazca here, most likely. And there's Gift of Paradise, which is actually very relevant here, getting them 3 life. And they can still play their Carnage Tyrant if they want to. Yep, there he is. Opponent's got 2 cards in hand. Karn's not a bad pickup. So let's attack with everyone. Opponent's forced to block. So the Sweltering Suns plan is still gonna work out. Play Sweltering Suns. Finish off Karn's Tyrant. I guess he could have a counterspell here. Nope, they're just gonna draw with Arch. So Karn's Tyrant down. And I'm gonna just minus with Karn here to apply the most pressure. Hour of Devastation is gonna clean up everything. I guess that was a reason to not minus Karn. And now there's Hour of Promise to help them stabilize. Do still have our Angel of Sanctions that can get rid of a zombie and provide a clock in the air, unless our opponent casts Memory from Commit Memory, but that's also risky. Alright, another Sweltering Suns also works, but I think I still prefer getting the Angel of Sanctions back, just because that provides a clock which we need here. So let's get rid of a zombie and say go. And then hope our opponent's out of tricks up their sleeve. Alright, opponent had a Consign to Oblivion to answer our Angel. Zombie gonna stay back out of fear of another Captain Lannery. Gonna draw a card with Arch. Alright, let's cycle this Renewed Faith. Let's cycle Cast Out. And cycle Sweltering Suns. Play a Mountain and cycle another Sweltering Suns, I suppose. And say go. So we've got a million Sweltering Suns in the graveyard, but now our opponent's going to start pulling ahead with their Arch of Orazca. And we're probably going to time out before we get to a 3rd game. Spring. Can draw them more cards. If we find a Firesong and Sunspeaker, we could burn them out with the Renewed Faiths in our graveyard. Opponent draws 2 with Mind. Alright, just a Plains to draw, so don't really have much we can do here. I'm not gonna cast the Sweltering Suns just to get 1 zombie, doesn't seem worth it. And want to keep the Renewed Faith in the graveyard, in case we find another Firesong and Sunspeaker. Alright, Arch of Orazca can draw us an extra card. I guess we want to do it now, since they still have the Oblivion in their graveyard to make us discard. And a Memorial to blow up our Arch. Just a land to draw. Alright, let's keep playing our land, keep activating Arch. Cycle Sweltering Suns. Play a treasure map. And I'm just gonna scry right now and bottom the land. Alright. Upkeep we can scry again. Chandra's good. Let's play Chandra. See if they have a negate. They do. Activate Arch. And say go. Alright, so next turn we can play Firesong and Sunspeaker and then cast Renewed Faith unless our opponent makes us discard 2 cards. Instead another Hour of Promise. That's fine. Let's play Firesong Sunspeaker. Get to cast the Sweltering Suns. Gain a ton of life. Opponent casts Struggle. In response we can Renewed Faith to deal 3 to our opponent. Get rid of all the zombies and then play another treasure map. And say go. So our opponent's at 1, another Resolved Chandra wins the game on the spot. Upkeep, transform treasure map. Bottom. Scry again. Bottom. Draw. There's Chandra. And that does it. Awesome, managed to win just in time. Super grindy game against the ramp deck here. But yeah, that's gonna do it. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. And this hand only has a 1 land in it, so I don't think we can keep even with all the cycling cards. This is better. It lacks some early interaction. Renewed Faith is, I guess, a play we can make on turn 2, so I guess it's still fine to keep. If we ever draw Sarcophagus, it's gonna be nice with the Sunspeaker, and the 2 life might be relevant against an aggressive deck. And turn 1 Soulscar Mage definitely looks like an aggressive deck to me. Which should be a good matchup in theory, but we did mulligan and we don't have any removal spells in hand, so we'll have to draw well. Alright, at least no turn to Kenra. But maybe a Karizev. Nope, Scrap Heap Scrounger. So this might be red splashing for black for the Scrap Heap, or it could just be black-red. Alright, there's an Abrade, that's okay. And another Renewed Faith. Alright. Let's pass a turn, keep up a Abrade, probably gonna kill the Scrounger with it. And then untap and play Karn. So take 1 from Soulscar. Let's see if our opponent has a Chain Whirler here. Nope, Pianalar instead. Alright, Sweltering Suns looking very appealing. If we can find it. Instead another Karn. I think I like Karn Plus since we can kind of use extra lands if our opponent gives them to us, and we might be able to find the Sweltering Suns this way as well. Alright, Sarcophagus goes to the graveyard and we get a Plains, so don't mind that. And Karn's gonna take the heat off of our life total for the time being. Alright, there's Ether Hub, so they do have black mana now to get Scrap Heap back from the graveyard. Don't want to see Chandra here. Instead, Lightning Strike on Karn, so they will be able to finish off Karn here. And Pianalar and Ether Hub also typically indicate black-red as opposed to mono-red splashing black, so Unlicensed Disintegration should be on our radar as well. Another Scrap Heap. Alright, a Sweeper would be nice here. Instead, another Mountain. So playing Karn here doesn't do a ton for us. We could get back Sarcophagus. And I guess Sarcophagus would be okay with the double Renewed Faith, but it is kind of slow. So I think we're better off just cycling Renewed Faith. And we might as well do that now in case we draw into a Sweltering Suns. And then set up for this Firesong next turn. Alright, Chandra instead. So let's pass a turn. We'll take some damage this turn, but then hopefully Firesong and Sunspeaker can stabilize us. Just 7. And the Phoenix, a follow-up, that's a pretty good one too. Alright. Treasure map to draw. Have to play Firesong and Sunspeaker. Say go. And we're definitely dead to Disintegration here, but if they don't have that one, then we might be able to survive a turn. Goblin Chain Whirler's gonna shrink. Firesong and Sunspeaker. Opponent's got a 1 card left. It's Bowman Courier. Alright, let's see if they only get in with Phoenix, if they sacrifice something to Pia. Everyone getting in there. Let's see, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're not dead if they use Pia to prevent us from blocking. But they probably will still do that, just to put us to 1. But then a top-decked Sweltering Suns would be quite a draw. Yep, they will sacrifice a Thopter to prevent us from blocking. So we should take 11 here, down to 1. Come on, Sweltering Suns or Hour of Devastation. One time. Alright, didn't get there, so which plays do we have left? We can play Chandra plus and potentially still hit Sweltering Suns. Karn would have to hit double Sweltering Suns, which seems less likely, and Treasure Map doesn't really do anything. So yeah, it's Chandra. Have to play our land first, and then hope to hit Sweltering Suns exactly. Alright, just a Treasure Map, so didn't get there. Alright, so on to game 2 against a red splashing black, or maybe black red, who knows. So how do we want to sideboard? Chandra's defeat seems good, Lyra Dawnbringer seems good. Could make an argument for Forsake since it exiles Scrapheap Scrounger, but that's a little bit narrow. And then what don't we want? We can definitely shave some number of treasure maps, just because might not have a ton of time to activate them. And then I could see shaving some number of Karns as well, since as we saw in that game, they can die pretty easily if your opponent has a board state going. And instead in this matchup, Firesong and Sunspeaker is going to be huge, combined with our 5 sweeper effects. Or Angels can also win the game. And then keep all the cycling cards with Sarcophagus, since they combine nicely with Firesong as well, if we can cast Renewed Faith out of the graveyard. So this seems fine. Would like to be on the play, and that's looking a lot better. Have our Sweltering Suns and the Lyra Dawnbringer as kind of the finisher. Don't know yet if we need to cycle the cast out, we probably don't. I'll take one from the courier. Right, Renewed Faith is a nice play. Gains us a little bit of life, and sets up a future Sarcophagus. Sweltering Suns is a little weaker on the play than it is on the draw, since as you'll see here, opponent's maximum gonna have 2 creatures in play, but we can be patient on the Sweltering Suns, don't have to fire it off right away. And there's a scrap heap. So let's cycle Renewed Faith, Angel of Sanctions. Alright, so now that we drew all these angels, I think I'm fine just using Sweltering Suns as a clean 2-for-1, without sandbagging it too much. Otherwise we might get into a spot where our opponent doesn't overextend into it, and then we end up taking a lot of unnecessary damage. Tapped Canyon from the opponent into another scrap heap, which we can cast out. Chandra's a pretty nice play here as well, since we can minus... She would die to a haste creature, but Black-Red doesn't have a ton of haste creatures. I guess Goblin Chain Whirler would be the other play that makes Chandra minus bad. Could also just Chandra plus, and that way we have 5 mana guaranteed for next turn, or we can just cast out here. So a lot of options. Think we'll just sit on the cast out for now, and wait to play Chandra when the board's a bit clearer than it is now. And I'm definitely fine using a cast out on the scrap heap here, since we have another cast out and an Angel of Sanctions at the ready. So would like to find an untapped land for next turn, but even if we don't, it's not a disaster. And there's a Chain Whirler, so yeah, had we minus Chandra, that would have been bad. Right, Renewed Faith to draw. So how about Chandra minus now? They could have a second Chain Whirler, I guess, but that would still be okay. Yeah, I think I'll go for it. Get value from our Chandra right away, and if Chandra survives, we'll have access to 5 mana for next turn. Karizev, that's fine. So opponent can get back a scrap heap end of turn out of the graveyard, and plains the draw. Alright, so what now? Can cycle Renewed Faith, plus play one of our angels. So let's make some mana, cycle Renewed Faith. And I think I like playing Angel of Sanctions, since if our opponent does have a removal spell at least, we still have Lyra for next turn, and having Lyra as a follow-up when we already have an Angel in play is also better, since we get to give the Angel of Sanctions lifelink, which is pretty huge. And if the Angel of Sanctions dies, we can just get it back at a later point. Alright, Scrap Heap comes back. That's fine. So let's see if the opponent maybe has a Glorybringer here, but they didn't last turn, instead it's just a cut from Cut to Ribbons. That's acceptable. And Scrap Heap can finish off Chandra. So we lose Chandra, but we're still okay. Opponent's got 1 card in hand, and we have a Lyra coming up here. So I think the same reasoning as last turn applies. I prefer getting back Angel of Sanctions as opposed to anything else. And we'll get rid of the Karizev, since she can still get in for 1 damage past the blocker. Alright, another cut. Opponent's gonna put us to 18. And then hopefully they're out of answers and we can ride this Lyra Dawnbringer to victory. Alright, I guess never mind. We'll keep doing the same thing over and over. This Karizev must be getting pretty dizzy from getting exiled all the time. Alright, our opponent hesitated a little bit too much with this scrap heap attack, so I'm gonna call their bluff. Alright, they did have the Abrade after all, but we still get to trade for a scrap heap, so that's fine. Still gonna hang on to the cast out instead of cycling it. Let's get back Angel one last time, hopefully. Karizev exiled again. And then next turn we can drop Lyra Dawnbringer and gain some life back. And put ourselves out of range of this cut to ribbons ×2 in the graveyard. Alright, opponent just cast a scrap heap, so finally we can play Lyra. And that should lock up the game. Let's get in there with Angel of Sanctions. And our opponent has very few draw steps now to find an answer to Lyra. And even if they do, we have a lot of other good things going on. And alright, our opponent's gonna pack it in. So on to game 3 against Black Red. Don't think we wanna change anything. Opponent might bring in some additional spot removal spells now that they saw Lyra, but there's not much we can do about that. So yeah, let's run it back. Alright, we're on the draw, and we have Sweltering Suns in our opening hand, so this is gonna be great if our opponent has a curve out kind of start. And it does look like it. Turn 1 Bowman Courier. So turn 2 we can cycle Renewed Faith, gain 2 life, spend our mana, and then hopefully this Sweltering Suns is gonna be good. Turn 2 Kenra, yep. And I think I'll play the Plains, so we don't show that we have double red already. Alright, let's play the Plains, say go. And then cycle Renewed Faith, unless we have to seal away something. Opponent gets in for 3. They might not play anything else here out of fear of Sweltering Suns, but that's fine. Still a nice 2 for 1, and our opponent doesn't get to add anything to the board in the meantime. Cast out's pretty good as well. And they're probably not going to play around a second Sweltering Suns, so that's a good backup one to have. And since their turn 2 play was Kenra and not Scrap Heap, they don't get to return it end of turn. Just a tap land and nothing else, so our opponent might have kept a pretty expensive hand with cards like Chandra or Glorybringer, but we have answers to those as well. So I'm not too concerned, and we might just cycle the Sweltering Suns end of turn to try and find some action. Or they just have a very reactive hand for all the angels they saw in the previous game. There's a Phoenix instead, fine using a cast out on that one. Could save the cast out for maybe a Planeswalker and try and sit on the seal away instead, but using cast out is just so much more mana efficient in this spot that I think it's probably worth it. Alright, we are flooding out a little bit, so I don't mind cycling Sweltering Suns here since we still have a seal away. And pick up another cast out, which is never bad. Is this a Glorybringer? Nope, Chandra, alright. Happy we picked up a second cast out. Opponent makes mana for Chain Whirler, that's fine. We have answers to both of the opponent's remaining creatures, but then we're kind of out of action ourselves. And we keep drawing mountains. So let's get rid of Chandra. So had we sequenced things differently, we could have still had a cast out in hand as opposed to seal away. And there's Hazoret, alright. The seal away is going to be good. So in the end, things lined up well for us. But we will still take 3, down to 11, so we don't have infinite time to find an answer here. And our opponent still has that Chandra in the graveyard that they can get back. So actually don't love our position. So Karn minus doesn't do much, so still gonna Karn plus. And hope to find something good. Firesong and Sunspeaker get a land. So yeah, the Chandra's gonna kill Karn together with the Chain Whirler, so we'll not be able to get back Firesong and Sunspeaker, unfortunately, unless our opponent goes for a different play. Yep, there's a Chandra. Alright, so do need to top deck something here. Drew just a few too many lands. Our start was pretty good, but Karn's dead. At least we know they probably don't have a spot removal spell, otherwise they would probably be fine with us having a Firesong and Sunspeaker. Alright, Lyra Dawnbringer, so that could be a huge draw here if our opponent doesn't have an answer. And if they had an answer to Firesong, I imagine they would have just gone to our face instead of after Karn. But that's not a guarantee. Alright, Phoenix, that's fine. Into Chandra, that's fine as well. Alright, opponent's just playing out their stuff in the hopes of eventually finding an answer to Lyra. Attacking isn't amazing into a Phoenix since they just get it back, and we don't have anything to back up our Lyra here. So if we attack with Lyra, we gain 5, but then our opponent just hits us back for 1,000,000, so I don't think attacking is gonna work, but of course that does leave us in a precarious situation, since if our opponent ever finds a spot removal spell for Lyra, we're dead. Just need to hope to find something off the top here to help us out. And there's a cut on Lyra, and maybe something to finish her off. Yeah, a Chain Whirler, and I think that's gonna be the game here, unfortunately. So flooded out a little bit, that can happen, but the matchup's definitely favorable, I think. And our opponent's gonna actually respect Cellular Wreckage here, which is gonna give us one more turn, but with Cut to Ribbons in the graveyard, they can afford to. So we're down to 1. Still don't think we have any outs. Yep, and just a land anyways. So let's play our land, say go, see if our opponent does anything weird. Alright, that's gonna do it. So GG's. And we were gonna draw Sarcophagus, which could have cast Sweltering Suns out of the graveyard. And Karn could have also gotten back the Firesong out of exile, so we would have gotten some pretty good draws. So had these cards just been a little bit closer to the top, we might have been able to turn things around. Alright, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this gameplay, and as always, have a nice day. I also want to thank all my patrons for supporting the channel, and you can do so yourself as well over at patreon.com/LegenVD, where you get cool rewards for supporting the channel, as well as getting us closer to our goals, where with every goal reached, we will release an additional weekly series. So if you want to see more content, Patreon is the place to go.